Long before ports, compasses, sails, maps, or written travel stories, people reached a continent they could not walk to. No shipwreck, no carved paddle, no ancient boat sitting safely in a museum case. Just stone tools, ochre, axes, food traces and iron rice, and a rock shelter called Madjedbebe, sitting on the far side of a sea crossing. So here's the problem. How can we know ancient humans reached Australia by sea when the first boat has disappeared? This is stickman history, and today we're following the vanished wood, the blue gaps, and the red trace that point to one of the oldest sea crossings in the human story. You've probably heard the simple version. During the Ice Age, sea levels were lower, so people walked to Australia. And honestly, that sounds reasonable at first. The world really did look different. To the northwest, exposed land connected much of mainland Southeast Asia into a larger region called Sunda. To the southeast, Australia, New Guinea, Tasmania, and nearby shelves formed a much larger landmass called Sahul. So yes, ancient people could walk across places that are underwater today. But then the map does something annoying. It refuses to close. Between Sunda and Sahul sat Wallacea, a chain of islands separated by open water. Lower sea level made some crossings shorter, but it did not turn the whole route into a sidewalk. That is the first crack in the walking story, because a land bridge only works if the land actually bridges, and Wallacea is the place where the Ice Age shortcut runs out. Okay? So if the map doesn't give us a bridge, what does it give us? It gives us a set of demands. Not a movie route, not one neat red line, a problem that real people had to solve with bodies, memory, timing, group decisions, and some kind of watercraft. And here's where it gets tricky. Was the first arrival a northern route, a southern route, or more than one movement? To answer that, we have to stop looking for a single line on the map and start looking at what each route would have demanded. Some modeling studies favor a northern path, moving through island chains toward present-day Mosul and New Guinea, though the exact route remains debated. That path may have offered more visible stepping stones and a larger target once Sahul came into view. But southern routes through places like Timor also matter because the evidence does not hand us a single diary of the voyage. The exact route is missing too. But remember the Wallacea water gap. Even if the path shifts north or south, the sea crossing stays in the story. So the map is not a photograph of the voyage. It is more like a locked door with several possible keys, and every key still includes watercraft. That is why the blue gaps matter so much. They do not tell us the name of the boat, but they tell us walking alone cannot finish the trip. Back on the far shore, the evidence stops being just a map problem. It becomes a place where people lived. At Madjedbebe, a major paper published in Nature on July 20th, 2017, reported human occupation around 65,000 years ago. That date matters because it puts people on Sahul very early, on the other side of the Wallacea water gap. And the site is not just one lonely flake in the dirt. There are stone tools. There is ochre. There are grinding stones and signs of plant processing. And between about 65,000 and 53,000 years ago, plant remains suggest people were using a broad diet, not just passing through. That range is important because it stretches the story beyond one dramatic landing day. You're looking at repeated living, repeated eating, repeated tool-making, and repeated choices. That matters because arrival is one thing, staying alive is another. This is where the ground-edge hatchet comes back into the story. A ground-edge hatchet is not proof of the boat itself, but it is proof of skill on the far side, making tools, working materials, and adapting to a new landscape. Think about what that means in plain human terms. After crossing the sea, people still had to learn plants, seasons, stone sources, wood, water, and shelter. The ground-edge hatchet points to that second challenge, the challenge after the voyage. So the missing boat matters because the people on the far shore are real, and Madjedbebe ochre matters because the red trace survives where the vanished wood does not. Here's the part that feels weirdly modern. We want a design. Was it a bamboo raft? A dugout? A bundle of reeds? Logs? Bark? Or something we do not have a name for anymore? Nobody's totally sure. And that is not a failure of imagination. It is what vanished wood does. Stone can wait in the ground for tens of thousands of years. Wood, fiber, and bark usually cannot. So if someone tells you we know exactly what the first boat looked like, that is too neat. The honest picture is rougher and honestly more interesting. We have a required crossing, possible route models, and a far-shore occupation that is already complex. That combination matters because each piece checks the others. Geography creates the problem. Models test possible paths, and archaeology shows people were actually there. It is, here is the crossing the boat had to make. Here are the routes that might explain it. And here is Madjedbebe, where people were already making a life beyond that crossing. Remember the red trace we started with? It does not show us the hull, but it pulls the vanished watercraft back into view by showing the world that existed after it landed. So let's restitch the whole journey. Sahul made the destination larger than modern Australia alone. Wallacea kept the sea crossing unavoidable. Madjedbebe provides strong evidence that people were already living on the far side by around 65,000 years ago. And the ground edge hatchet, along with grinding stones, plant remains, and other tools, suggests this was not just arrival. It was people making a life after arrival. Back to the screen we opened in our heads. The empty museum case for a 65,000-year-old boat. That case is still empty, but the evidence around it is no longer empty. Not because we found the boat, because the crossing left a map-shaped fingerprint, and because on the far shore, the tools, food traces, Madjedbebe ochre, and ground edge hatchet are not imaginary. They are the aftermath of a voyage. Back to the Madjedbebe ochre. The little red object is still there while the boat is still gone. And that is the whole lesson of vanished wood, blue gaps, and the red trace. This small red trace cannot show us the boat, but together with the tools, food remains, and the geography of Wallacea, it helps show that people were living on the far side of a sea crossing. This raises a harder question. If the first boat vanished, how many other human breakthroughs are hiding as absences in the record? Or put it another way, what other first inventions disappeared because they were made from wood, fiber, and time? Stickman history follows the objects, maps, and missing pieces that make the human story visible. What do you think is the stronger clue? The water gaps that demanded boats? Or the Madjedbebe tools that prove people were already living on the far shore? See you next time.